Today we are here with Merybell Nabilah Reynoso, who is one of the participating artists in the HAST Du Lust exhibition. And she's author of the sculpture that you can see next to her, titled Jaula de Oro. And Merybell is an anthropologist, artist, writer, human rights activist, and mental health advocate from the Dominican Republic, but currently based in Mexico. Right? And in her work, she currently explores sweat and queer Caribbean pleasure, bodies, mental illness, neurosis, ARTivism, the paradox of known places, the cosmos, and is influenced by many artists, which include Augusta Savage, and Fernando Botero. So, thank you, Merybell, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you for the lovely audience.
Is there anything that you would like to add to the introduction that I may have omitted?
No, it sounds good. And how that order, exactly how I would pronounce it. So thank you, Barbara.
Okay, so I would jump right to the topic of your sculpture, because it's also like part of a wider concept of your work, is the topic of the body, and specifically about the fat bodies. And as this exhibition is part of the Mental Health Awareness Month, we can maybe talk a bit about how the mental health affects the body image of a person who experiences certain symptoms, but also how the whole body image in like societal point of view creates certain symptoms in people, like in the other way. So maybe you want to say like why this is your focus and how is it like represented in your work?
So the other day, I don't know where it actually looked like, if here or there. Thank you so much for being here. Before I start, I just wanted to say that I was telling my mentor today that it meant a lot if I could talk about mental health, which is a topic of mine, to 2 people, to 5 people, to 10 people, because I think we can all talk. I would like to hear more from all of you, if possible, at some point. In terms of the body itself, I've always been fascinated by non-normative bodies. And I think something that I was reading a few years ago really encompasses that. It's a book by Sonia Renee-Taylor, which is called Body is Not an Apology. And she starts saying that she had a friend with a disability who found out she was pregnant, the friend. And the friend didn't want to be pregnant. And then Sonia asked her gently in the beginning of the book, then what happened, basically. And then she said, well, as a person with a disability, I didn't know that I could use a condom. And she said it, and the words really, I cried. I even cried, because this is someone that felt that she didn't deserve to take care of her own self when having sex, because the world has told her that her body is not a body that deserves everything, that deserves care, that deserves love, that deserves not getting pregnant if she doesn't want it to. So I read that, and also what I wrote in Improper Dose about having someone tell me oh, you should be in Miss Dominican Republic, but we need to sort out, you need to get rid of the fat. I'm always interested in the otherness of.
I found it very interesting, and I know that multiple people were asking about this. You put this otherness into another level, and you explore the body also from a perspective of going through the body, beyond the body. So can you maybe tell us more about this cosmological aspect?
I do not have a lot of answers to that. I have more questions. because I always think, what is beyond the body that I don't know, and I don't know. But in terms of healing through the body, I think like everything starts at the body. Like even, well, I don't want to get too metaphysical, but like if a person if you're no longer in the body, whatever that means, do you exist? I don't know. So my answer is I don't know. Sorry.
And how is it, like, is it an aspect in your, like, in creating the work? Because, like, for the sculpture, for example, you phrase it, like, in the sense that it also, like, acknowledges the, like, other bodies, like beyond the earth kind of bodies, like this, like, cosmological aspect. So it's like, how do you maybe, like, think about this aspect of beyond the body when creating the physical body of someone?
That's a very interesting question. No, for real. I don't want to give much away, but I think I'm always thinking of the body via other bodies, like the otherness of people, but then also from, how do you say that in English? Like it's anti-especismo in Spanish. I don't know how to say it in English, to be honest.
Speciesism?
Yeah, like that idea that, like, because I think when we talk about the body, we even, like, what is the first thing you think when I say body? Do you think of human body, exactly. But like, I think about other species.
That's like interspecies.
Interspecies, exactly, like my relationship to other species. And that is fascinating to me. And then also, what I said before, what I also don't know, that might be out there and might not be out there. So like, I think this piece is also talking to this thing of not knowing, like this contradiction of thinking you know things but actually don't, and where is that fine line between both, which I don't know.
Because I find it like really interesting that in your piece, you are talking about this body as a cage, which can be in relation with just like mental health issues, but at the same time it's like this healing and liberating tool at the same time. And that also brings me to the medium you use, that it's like the creation itself, it's sort of art therapy, but like not solely, but can you maybe tell us more about how this like physical action and creation and work with the physical material is affecting your own like mental health journey, and how it like works also with this topic of the body, but with the topic of the healing in general.
So I actually, like when I studied art, I went to conservatory. So I studied classical music and piano, right? So I came close to ceramics and pottery and sculpture late in life, as I call it. What does that mean? So never mind. Just I came across it when I had to come across it. And one thing that I really like about sculptures and working with the materials is that I need to be present, because if I'm not there, like if my mind is somewhere else, then the glazes come off wrong because I put too much cobalt or some pigments in a different percentage, or I put more silica in the clay, and then the clay, no longer works, it's worth shit, right? So what I really like about working with materials is just being there with the materials. Like I am one with the materials, and I know that sounded a bit cliche, but I don't have, there's nothing else there. There's no one else, there's nothing else. It's just me and the materials. And for me, it's kind of a spiritual practice. I was telling Barbara before that going to a studio, and also in my own home where I also work on stuff, it's like going to church. Like some people go to church to look for this out of this life sort of experience. Other people look to different things, and this is for me church. So I go to church from Monday to Sunday, like, and I cannot not go to church unless I'm in Vienna talking to you.
Really appreciate it. You took a time off the church.
Exactly. I took time off from church to come to another church because I feel like this is also a lovely space to be here.
I really like how you describe it, that like becoming one with the material, because this for me really speaks about this like sort of otherness, that you go beyond the body and you're becoming like a bigger body, or like a part of a collective body almost. And I think it also speaks closely to the topic of the exhibition, that it's like this, because on one hand we speak about the sexual pleasure, but at the same time that all begins with like experience the body in like a non-sexual ways maybe. So I think this physical practice is very like, I think, interesting to like speak about, and yeah, we can maybe talk now a bit more about like the stigma that surrounds the mental health in general, because that's what we speak about every year. That's why we have Mental Health Awareness Month, because these topics are still very stigmatized. And I think it's also part of why the body can be perceived as the cage, that you are like boxed into something that is actually mental.
Yeah.
And what is like, what is from your perspective this relationship between this like the mental health and the physicality of the body that can be perceived as the cage because of the symptoms?
Yeah, like I am not my body, but at the same time I'm in my body, right? And so talking to stigma particularly, I think nowadays a lot of people are talking about mental health, which I really appreciate. But still, we're always talking about, like, if you see the news, we talk about certain disorders over others. And then there's people experiencing schizophrenia, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, and they barely talk about this because it is still too much the way of stigma, like getting jobs or getting any sort of opportunities. Or if something happens and you're visibly enraged because it's something that you're in your right to be enraged for. When we talk about emotions, right? Some emotions are labeled bad, but then we know that no emotion is bad or good, it's just an emotion, right? And so literally there's people saying, oh, but this person has bipolar, or this person is crazy, has this or that. And then when we talk about the art scene, we talk a lot about how, I don't know, certain artists, like, it's weird because a lot of people say, well, our condition can be a cage, but also our condition, like I always think about Joy Kusama having schizophrenia and having all of these hallucinations where she sees a bunch of color. And I know she probably sees them because she has schizophrenia, which is such, like, it gives her a lot of power, but it's probably also very tiring to live with schizophrenia because of the stigma, but also because she got help very late in life, like, so yeah, that's why I always think of the body of being like a sort of prison and also a liberation, because it kind of makes it unique in your own way. But it sounds like I'm saying contradictory things, but I just think both things can be true.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah, like with the stigma, as you were saying, that like sometimes people downplay the real issues and blame it on the condition. So it's like, it comes naturally that people are not comfortable with sharing it, and especially if some conditions are stigmatized, even like not stigmatized even within the medical community, but the way they are communicated. For example, with the BPD specifically, the medical community itself like communicates it in a way that it's manipulative. That one of the symptoms is manipulation, for example. And I was like to familiarize myself like with this, I was like reading stuff, and I was watching a video about this, and in the comments, people with the with the disorder were trying to clarify about how this manipulative kind of syndrome actually works, and this helped me to understand the condition way more than the video that was from the like psychological association, but it communicated it in a way of like, oh yeah, people can get it like manipulative, but it's just a symptom, but it was still like presented very negatively. So I think it's very important that like people who experience it are like clarifying the way it is, even though it's sad that this needs to be done. But I think every year we touch a bit also just like systemic issues.
I think like most mental health disorders, like as some, there's like well, I'm not a psychologist, but there's like is it like a line of thought that talks about mental health disorders being sort of adaptive, like to things that happen in the childhood. So in the end, it's kind of, even if it's not seen that way, it's protecting you. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't know, people with different disorders tend to have certain symptoms, and some symptoms, even if it's not seen that way, it's protecting them. Like, I don't know, people that have a disorder that makes them very reactive, but probably because, you know, they had to protect themselves in some way. Like, I hope this makes sense, but I just think, yeah, there's a lot of stigma, even within the medical community, but also on media. And then I really appreciate this exhibition because this is probably one of the first that I've seen that talks to mental health and the intersection with art, as opposed to saying, oh, this is an artist that lives with this condition. It really talks about mental health in a way that we cannot speak with words, which is kind of what I think art also is sometimes.
And but to not only like criticize the institutionalized help, there are still useful tools that we can learn, and it's part of the big part is this like mindfulness, but also learning the technique. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about like this dialectical behavior therapy and cognitive behavior therapy, and how was it intertwined with your practice?
Yeah, no, I do not want to shit on, you know, seeking medical help. I think it always helps. And obviously now mindfulness, like I have some friends, artist friends that are like, oh, mindfulness, bye. I'm so tired of this, and I understand. So I don't want to talk about mindfulness specifically, but more of like techniques that I use from DBT and CBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, and which has to do with a lot of nervous system regulation. So recognizing what the body is going through. This is why I'm always thinking of the body, right? Because the body goes through something, and then getting curious of what is that, and then doing some emotional, like it's nervous system regulation, like I don't know, tapping could be. There's different things that perhaps we will share afterwards, but because some of them sound a bit like new agey to me, but like, you know, stopping for 5 seconds, which is like, okay, yeah, but what if I'm in this really big crisis? Stopping for 5 seconds is not gonna do anything for me. Of course it's not, because you probably need help. But when, like, 5-8 years ago, I wouldn't even have the tools to self-regulate because I didn't even know what was that. So I don't know, I hope that helps. It's very vague what I just said, but I think it has helped me cope with life, because I just feel that life, for a person like me, can be very overwhelming. I'm always overwhelmed. Like, and I think most of us are, like, so much, like, we were talking outside of the content. And like, I go on social media and so much stuff on the street, like, So I'm trying to also live a life that is more slow, even if that goes against what I'm supposed to be, because I'm young and I'm supposed to be working my ass off 24/7 and doing so much stuff. I'm trying to slow down. I don't even know how sometimes. I'm still figuring it out, but because that's what my nervous system needs. But being able to recognize that I need that, like less visual stimulation sometimes has helped me a lot.
Maybe we can talk a bit about something that is here, for example, like stigmatized, but we are still very open and accommodating to talk about it, is very different, for example, in Latin America where you come from, and how is it with your like art practice there, for example, and what challenges do you like have to go through because of it?
So I think a lot of people from the Dominican Republic tend to, like, if they're artists, they tend to leave just because it's very conservative, and it's weird because, like, then you see some people that are rich and well off and they go to the opera house in Vienna as opposed to supporting local art. But you know, I was telling a relative recently, like, oh, I'm working. What are you working on now? And I said, oh, a penis. And I was like, why? Why a penis? And also this thing about that is gendered. Like, it's better to work on what we associate with a female body as opposed to working with a penis. And say, yeah, penis. And they're like, oh, but you shouldn't like post that anywhere. Like, you know, you're not in Europe anymore. Like, you know, all of this kind of discourse around the body again. And also what I should do as an artist. So this is why a lot of artists from the Dominican Republic tend to leave to other places. You know, Buenos Aires, Mexico, and obviously I yearn to have a place like Improper Walls in the Dominican Republic, because I think there's a need for spaces like that, which we don't have. But I think things are changing slowly but steadily. So, but growing up there was not learning about anything regarding my own sexuality. Just like even artists, like when we learn about artists, they were all male artists, and they were all like, oh, Kandinsky and this and that, but they were all male. They were like, we were rarely taught about, you know, female artists. Yeah. So it was, from the art perspective, I think it was hard.
Okay, thank you very much. I will maybe open it now for the questions from the audience.
Thank you so much for being here, because I know.
But also, if you want to add something that I think.
No, I think I should just shut up and.
We're doing artist talk.
No, I know, but like, enough. Yeah.
Any questions? Or do you have questions for the audience? Because we can make it a conversation and you will be
Yeah. No, but does anyone want to say anything, ask anything, or? I know this is an immigrant gallery, so maybe like I want to hear more about what's it like for you. Like talking to art and mental health in the places you come from. Like why and how that brought you here to Improper Walls.
Who wants to start? I think we talk about this in the circle a bit often, but like becoming from Lithuania, most of us here, which I think is a place. 4 out of 6. We never talk about mental health. Mental health was specifically specific for some people, like far away, with really heavy illnesses that could not live their lives, that they should go to seek for help. And it's very different living in Vienna. And I don't know, it's about having like living now here in Vienna, because I live here for 10 years, so it's very hard for me to compare, like how is it in Lithuania now, but what we hear, it's not like moving as fast as here. But like in a current, also living in a bubble, Like we're living in a certain bubble where everybody's very open and we talk about this very openly.
Same.
So we all know like who's going to therapy, what they're experiencing, what's like people living with, and I think it's very nice. But if I would pick up my personal experience from Lithuania, it's a bit still quite behind, and it was nothing that I would ever even thought about that I could go to therapy. And what I think is something really dramatic happened to me.
I mean, summarized the thing you're very long.
We're probably doing it
No, I'm also from Latin America, I'm from Mexico. And
Really?
yeah, but I mean, it's also kind of like the same. I know like things are changing and there are like new discourses, and like I mean, society is also adapting and like waking up in a way. But I mean, growing up, it was like mental health was never a topic, you know, unless it's kind of like the same. And sometimes I really question like these countries, you know, they have so many similarities in a way. It's a very patriarchal society, as you say, it's very body based. Like women in general, they you know, they have, there's always like this double standards of you have to be a saint almost. There's like either this like saint or whore or mother. They're like these very iconic figures of how female figures should be. And I think like really going away from that, it's extremely complicated, and that's one of the reasons I actually like enjoy it so much here. Because I have, first of all, I mean, it's a safe country, so you're not afraid of just walking by up the street and like being catcalled or grabbed. I was telling actually like, I mean, this is a bit off topic, but I was telling to someone an experience, like, I mean, when I was a kid, I was like, you know, touched by strangers on the street. And this is something like, I mean, as I'm a grown up, I can understand it's not right, but I think these little kids, they don't even know. So it's also kind of like this relationship with sexuality is also pretty fucked up. In like, I mean, at least in Mexico, it's very crazy. But like, mental health was never a topic, and like I agree, like these things you learn in school should be actually like I really think there should be a subject at least that help kids regulate or like I don't know, like learn techniques to, or even just know. I mean, you know, like in, you know, kind of if you study psychology in, I don't know, like high school, and you know, like these very specific things about mental health and mental diseases, not diseases, mental disorders. But you always think it's like, you know, it's so theoretical. No one feels like empathic, or no one feels like, oh, it can actually, I could ever get depressed. I could ever like get anxiety. I could ever, you know.
Yeah.
It feels so far away, and that's the way people talk about like mental health in general. It's like so far away, and it's so clinic. And this is something that I've learned here. Like, I mean, everyone's struggling with something at some point or the other.
Yeah.
And it's really necessary to go sometimes to therapy. And I mean, or I don't know, whatever helps you. But it's a big difference.
I live in Mexico City, and I also live in a bubble there. The same bubble you probably guys have here. I have it there where like everyone goes to therapy and talks about what they talked in therapy to friends, and then you know you joke about being like, oh yeah, how much clonazepam are you having, or like, but you know that's not the experience of everyone. But yeah, I'm thinking about like because we talk a lot about anxiety and depression, but like what happens, like I had a friend when I lived in the UK who started having psychotic symptoms, for example. And then we only seen psychotic symptoms in the street, someone experiencing homelessness. But what if someone close to you is experiencing psychotic symptoms? Would you know what to do? And also, would you still love them when they come out of that and not be like, oh, that like knowing more about mental health has made me like a better friend, I think. Because this friend specifically, like, I think that brought us closer together. Because if you're able to be with your friend when they're experiencing a psychotic episode, then you can support each other when life is not that difficult. But we don't really have the tools for that. So like how do you know someone is like, yeah. And honestly, I feel like, I know this sounds like such a cliche, but art has saved my life in many ways.